When will Novak Djokovic play next after withdrawing from Qatar Open? Novak Djokovic made history with his run to the Australian Open final 2 weeks and has perhaps unsurprisingly given himself further time to recover from his efforts. After stunning Jannik Sinner in a 5-set semi-final in Melbourne, Djokovic was then beaten by Carlos Alcaraz in the men's singles final. The world number 3 was set for a quick reunion with both world number 1 Alcaraz and world number 2 Sinner at the Qatar Open, with action in Doha taking place from February 16-21. Tennis news. Rafael Nadal addresses Djokovic, Alcaraz, Sinner debate and asserts Patrick Mouratoglou is wrong. Why Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner are completely different. ATP star who has played them. However, the Serbian, who has been in the stands at the Winter Olympics this week, has now withdrawn from the ATP 500 event, which he previously won in 2016 and 2017. Djokovic is yet to comment on his withdrawal, but the tournament has confirmed that the 38-year-old has pulled out due to fatigue after the physical and mental exploits of his Australian Open campaign. That looks like a wise decision on paper, having been beaten by Matteo Berrettini in his opening Qatar Open match last year, just weeks after he was forced to retire with an injury in the Australian Open semi-final. With no points to defend at the event, Djokovic's ranking will not be impacted by his decision to withdraw, although all eyes will now be on when he returns to action. Where will Djokovic play next? With Djokovic understandably taking a more selective approach to his scheduling in recent years, it is hard to predict exactly when he will return. However, it seems more than likely that the Serbian's next event will be the Masters 1000 event in Indian Wells, one of the most prestigious tournaments on the ATP Tour calendar. Djokovic was on the entry list announced for the event last week, with every top 10 player across both the ATP and WTA Tour set to be in action. Indian Wells will take place from March 1st to 15th, with the main draw of the event set to start on Wednesday, March 4th. That would give Djokovic just over a month in between the end of the Australian Open and the start of the first Masters 1000 event of 2026, with the Serbian also guaranteed to receive an opening round bye as a seeded player. The Serbian holds a joint record 5 men's singles titles at the tournament, tying with fellow tennis great Roger Federer. However, the Serbian has not won the title or reached the final since 2016 and has failed to make the quarterfinal in his 5 tournament appearances since then. Should Djokovic choose to play, he will look to improve on a shock second-round loss to Botic van de Zandschulp from last season. If Djokovic chooses to skip Indian Wells, he could then return at the Miami Open, where he was a finalist last year. Want more from Tennis 365? Add us as a preferred source on Google to your favorites list for tennis coverage you can trust. Read next. Jannik Sinner number 1 in alternative tennis rankings despite Carlos Alcaraz's Australian Open win. Should Djokovic choose to play, he will look to improve on a shock second-round loss to Botic van de Zandschulp from last season. If Djokovic chooses to skip Indian Wells, he could then return at the Miami Open, where he was a finalist last year. Want more from Tennis 365? Add us as a preferred source on Google to your favorites list for tennis coverage you can trust. Read next. Jannik Sinner number 1 in alternative tennis rankings despite Carlos Alcaraz's Australian Open win.